Hola todos, how we doing? Welcome to chapter 9. Now that we did the 4 zones, which were up through chapter 8, chapter 9 and 10 are some back-end stuff. 9 is interesting, 10 is really important. So let's get through 9 and then we'll get to 10 next week. So chapter 9 is marketing research within social media. And I'm not really sure where to start here because on one hand, it's very exciting, it's very powerful, and on the other hand, it's very flawed. So the reason why it's powerful and exciting is it's almost real time. We do have very, very large sample sizes to go from. And we get behavior in action. We're not asking people what they did last week. We can see what they did last week without having to ask them. Now, secondary research is data that already exists. So that would be just looking at someone's feed. The data already exists. Primary research would actually be having a questionnaire embedded within some kind of a social platform, asking them questions and creating new data. Now, secondary research, a lot of it is observational, meaning you're looking at the data and what they've been doing. I mean, if we were looking at Foursquare and someone had their Foursquare account active, we would be able to see, geographically speaking, where this individual went. That's called observational research. Now, the first half of the chapter, we talk about qualitative. Now, qualitative means words. The upside to qualitative data, historically speaking, is a very rich, thick description. The downside to qualitative data is you usually don't have very large sample sizes. Social media is blending all this. Let me hold that thought. So ethnographic research, for instance, if we wanted to go in and check out blogs to see how, all the... I was just reading a post before I started recording video that someone's creating a journal about Bruce Springsteen, an academic journal, peer-reviewed. And the title of the journal is BOSS, B-O-S-S. Well, we could go into the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Bruce Springsteen blogs and do ethnographic research and see, how they're organized, what are the common topics, what's the worldview. A more detailed version of this that was created is called, instead of ethnographic research, nethrographic research. This is Rob Kortnick, who's now up at York University up in Canada. And he's done some amazing stuff with doing ethnographic research online. Now, quantitative usually means math. Quantitative usually means formulas. And we wouldn't, in the past, be able to mix qualitative and quantitative data because it was so hard. But because we could collect qualitative on such a grand scale with social media, because we can translate those words into numbers, we have a blending of qual and quant within social media. And that's not really ever happened before. This is probably one of the most dynamic areas within all social media research. Now, social media monitoring is the big buzzword of the semester, not only because the Super Bowl and this is what I did, but if you want to talk about business practice and one of the most clear, understood areas from a strategy perspective when it comes to social media, well, social media monitoring is very, very hot right now. It's a very good buzzword. You can go out and get a job in this area. We know lots of companies are hiring services that do this monitoring. Now, whether you call this the quantitative or qualitative side, sentiment analysis is probably the sticking point of all sticking points. How do we know if someone's being negative or someone's being positive? Many times it's easy, but these computer programs can't bring up sarcasm. They can't dive into that yet. So this is an area, there's a lot of firms looking into this. All social media monitoring tools give you some kind of a sentiment analysis type feeling. It's usually accurate within a 5 to 10%. You know, if you see 90% negative and 10% positive, you know the trend is all towards negative. Really, we have lots of challenges, you know, with regards to accuracy and sentiment. I mean, I've already said that on the previous slide. Now, content analysis. Hold on. Sorry about that. Content analysis is kind of what we do within a social media monitoring program. Okay? We look for particular themes, keywords, thoughts, something. You know, what's interesting, and I said it was the blending of qual and quant. You know, I could look for a phrase such as Philadelphia Phillies opening day. Well, that's interesting. And within that phrase, I could come up and see what are the top blogs talking about the Phillies, who are the top people talking about the Phillies opening day on Twitter, and I can use that phrase to find out key influencers. I could use that phrase to find out what conversations are happening. You know. Now, here is one of the huge downsides to social media marketing research. We do not know if we have first of all, we probably can never have a statistical probabilistic sample, meaning that we could do the math and also use the science behind the math to say, is this a true representation of the sample population? This is a big issue. When you're doing it from, even though we may have very large sample sizes, when we're doing observational, ethnographic, or any of the qualitative, even if we have huge sample sizes, that information is still not generalizable to the population as a whole. You know. Don't worry about that. Another huge issue is non-response bias, meaning not only is the information that we collected not generalizable, but the data and its findings may be biased because we don't know who is not included in the sample. The non-response rate. The non-response rate may include all the most significant influencers. None of the significant influencers were part of the sample. Therefore, the sample can't be that good. That would be a non-response error. Now, Radian6 is the biggest and still the biggest firm out there. We use Trax, which is headquartered in New York City for the Super Bowl. Spreadfast, Hootsuite are two other companies that do this. There are a number of other companies. And broadly speaking, every one of the social media monitoring, social media research, qual or quant, it all starts with, and please write this down, the API, Automatic Programming Interface. Twitter has an API. Facebook has an API. You know, LinkedIn has an API. And what happens is the API is the raw feed for Twitter. It's the raw feed for Foursquare. It's the raw feed. So you see everything, all of it. Now, computers can handle all of it. Sometimes you'll see in blogs or in the blogosphere, yeah, I have Radian6, I have Twitter's Firehose, I have Facebook's Firehose, and I have LinkedIn's Firehose. They call the API the fire hose of data, meaning it's a really big, thick pipe, just like a fire hose where, 20 gallons a second come out of that, you can't stand in front of a fire hose. It's under high pressure. It's a lot of water coming out. You would drown in it, basically. But that's the vernacular that they use. Radian 6 has the fire hose of data. Based on the fire hose of data, there's certain keywords that they look for. There's certain phrases that they look for. There's certain times of the day. Basically, how you set the program up, you look at the raw feed. The raw feed goes through the scanner of particular keywords you're looking for. And that is the information that comes through in the social media monitoring program. I mean, think about the ability to do, metaphorically speaking, a Google search on Twitter, the raw feed, and have that information pushed to you all the time. Pretty amazing stuff. Okay, yeah, very good. So that is our marketing research. Let me wrap up by saying, if you have one of these social media monitoring programs, you could probably answer a lot of questions or get a good feel for a lot of questions before you go out and spend the gobs and gobs of cash to do a primary research study. I'm a big fan. I'm trying to figure out how I can get it for Seton Hall and the Marketing Research Center upstairs in an affordable manner. Okay, see you guys Thursday.